How's it going, everybody? Welcome, believe it or not, to episode 40 of the Table Talk podcast. Yes, we hit the number 40, and once you hit a number like that, you have to bring in a guest that is going to make that number special. And our special guest, yes, it's a milestone. And our special guest today is the Mayor of Dearborn Abdullah Hammoud. First of all, Abdullah Hammoud, thank you so much for being here today. We really do appreciate it. We apologize, by the way, it's on us that we had to start a little bit later, but we are here. We're ready to have a great show. We're glad we have the Mayor of Dearborn here today. Also want to introduce the co-host of the show, little sis Sarah Tab is in the building, and then big sis Abid Tab is in the building. I don't know if you knew that. By the way, we're all brothers and sisters.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yes, we're all siblings.
Do we look alike?
No.
Oh,
Really? All right.
Maybe Sarah and you look alike.
Okay. All right. Well,
my siblings don't look alike.
Well, we're gonna have some fun today, man. We're gonna have some fun today. We have a great show lined up for you today. Like I mentioned in the post, we're gonna learn a lot about his journey today, the mayor that is. We're gonna talk about some of the things he has accomplished, and of course some of his future goals, future plans. So we're looking forward to that as well. My brother, people already commented. My brother said LeBron or Jordan. I don't know what he's asking this question for. Jordan? All right, quick. There you go. That's a quick answer. Cal Trey saying
6'6". You know what that means?
Yes, he missed out on one. But we got a debate on that another time, another day. I could definitely argue the LeBron side of it as well. But before we do that, I got to give a shout out to the sponsors of today. Our two sponsors for today is the Balkan House Restaurant and Give to Gain. I am going to start off with the Balkan House Restaurants. They are a gold sponsor of ours. Famous for their doner kebab sandwich. They even serve breakfast. All their food is halal. Service is A1. Always giving back to the community. Shout out to Juma Hassan and everybody over there at the Balkan House Restaurant. Location is 3028 Kniff Street, Hamtramck, Michigan. They also have a Ferndale location, 314 West 9 Mile Road, Ferndale, Michigan. Again, shout out to them. I think they're in Bosnia today. They just traveled today. I stopped by and talked to them yesterday about it. So they're enjoying their time over there in Europe. With that said, again, thank you so much, Mayor Hammoud, for being here today. We're looking forward to a show. First of all, can you tell people who are watching or that are eventually going to watch a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you came from, and, school-wise and everything like that?
Absolutely. First of all, I got to say, I'm disappointed that I'm the 40th episode milestone. You know what I mean? I'm just like, man, milestone, it's like 40,
Are you close to that age? That's the question. We're trying to match you with the age situation. Are you that close?
I'm 32.
32. We asked
I'm just joking. Yeah. So no, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem.
I don't know if I'd ever do this with my siblings. It'd be the weirdest podcast ever created with my siblings.
Oh, yeah,
it get weird here sometimes.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
I'm excited.
Awkward.
I'm excited.
It does. We have interesting topics. But yeah, go ahead. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Abdullah. Born and raised in East Dearborn. I'm a tractor. It's probably my proudest title. Fortson's the greatest school in all the land. I'm the second oldest of 5 children. We're 4 boys and 1 daughter is the youngest, Layla. I'm married. My wife Fatma. She's a physician in the community, and I'm a new father. My daughter Mariam, 6.5 months, and so she's got 2 teeth now, and so I'm excited to go home to see them. So super eager for that. But growing up, I'm somebody who wanted to, I aspired to be a physician, just like any other child of an immigrant whose parent imposed on them to become a physician.
100%.
And I failed miserably.
Oh no!
I got my bachelor's in biology. I applied to about 300 medical schools in a period of 3 years and got denied by every single. I think the schools got together and they teamed up.
Like, not him.
So much at the 4th year, I think a school sent me a letter before I applied and said, hey, save your money. We're going to tell you no again. And so I got my master's in public health, and I ended up working in healthcare for several years before I made the shift and ultimately ran for office in 2016. Served 5 years as state representative for the city of Dearborn, and then found the calling to run for mayor, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been generous, and here I am today.
Wow.
Yeah, go ahead. What are you about to say?
Like, you had a vision, you thought this was the way to go, and then you were deterred so many times, God's plan literally, and then here you are.
He plans, and here's the ultimate.
Yeah. And you ended up marrying a physician, so.
Yeah, yes. And my brother's a dentist, my other brother's a lawyer. My sister's in the healthcare field, so I turned out to be the failure, educationally speaking.
No.
But
we ain't gonna let you call yourself a failure today.
No, I'll give you a fun story. 2017, January 3rd, I'm getting sworn into office in Lansing. My mother, the only woman in hijab on the whole Lansing floor. she's crying after I took my oath of office, and she hugs me, and she says, true story, she says, I want you to know that I'm very proud of you, but I would have been more proud if you were a doctor. I kid you not, she told me that on the house floor. Until this day, she still asks, will I ever go back? I still have time.
There you go.
That's crazy.
Will you ever? Oh, we're gonna get into that because I do
the
ask.
The answer is no.
Okay, the answer is no. All right. So, what is it like, man, to be the mayor of Dearborn? You said you're 32 years old. That's a relatively very young age to be an elected official, especially for like a big city like Dearborn. So, what is it like to be the mayor of Dearborn, especially like at a young age? How is that?
I don't like wake up in a day and say, okay, I woke up, I'm the mayor today, and I'm going into work, and I'm the mayor. Honestly, I wake up like I'm Abdullah from Dearborn, and I'm somebody who was born and raised here. We grew up in a very working poor family, and when I get into office, people call me by my title, whatever it might be, but the title doesn't bring you respect. I think the individual brings respect to the office and the title. And so largely for me, going into work is about working with a team that I've built to try to help address the issues that residents are facing. And so for me, it's like any other job. It comes with a few add-ons, right? With the social media tags and, hey, my grass is not cut or my garbage didn't get picked up. You have to deal with it. But I largely still just see myself as Abdullah who spent his time at Forsen through Dearborn, and this is my hometown. If you're not willing to fight for home, what are you willing to fight for? And that's largely how I see myself every day.
It's funny, you said, you wake up every day and you be yourself. I think that's what makes you probably a great mayor, and I feel like
the mayor of the people, what they said. They've been calling him, your nickname is the mayor of the people, so.
And how long have you been the mayor of Dearborn, by the way?
It's been 6 months and like 2 days.
Wow. Mashallah. I've seen, we're going to get into a couple of things that you've already made some moves, made some changes. Obviously, you and your team want to give the credit to the team. I'm sure you're definitely for that as well. So we're going to get into that, but yeah, mayor of the people, that's a great one.
No, I wanted to say, like, even just having the kids see you on here, like, they know they could get asked you questions about sports or about anything, and it's like, it's normal. You're not as intimidating as your normal mayor that's like an old guy that doesn't, won't take the time to even acknowledge the kids. You know what I'm saying?
I try to be relatable. I think the most important thing you can be in a position like this is accessible, is relatable, it's authentic. I'm not somebody who cares for the title. I think my favorite title right now is Abu Maryam. I don't get enough of that. I'm kind of like, I was telling my wife in the car the other day, I was like, my whole life I wanted to be a father, now a father. Nobody's calling me by my appropriate father title. It's very upsetting, but I get it. And so for me, whenever I see a child, it's just about, I hope they see something in me for them to aspire to be greater 100%. Than. I don't want them to be me. I want them to be better than me. And if we're able to, put that, instill that inspiration into children, that is all the success in the world. Even if I accomplish nothing as mayor, hopefully that you've at least set the pathway for children to aspire for something greater than they ever thought that they could be.
100%.
So what made you want to become an elected official? I know you kind of touched on it, but what made you want to do that specifically?
So, after I was unsuccessful in becoming a physician, I jumped into the healthcare world. And the goal there was to then become like a CEO of a hospital, climb up, still able to advocate for change. And, growing up, me and a bunch of kids that grew up, we had this saying before a Drake lyric ever hit, it was 6 figures by 26. It was because we grew up very working poor.
Yeah.
I lived in 12 different homes by the age of 14. And for us, financial stability was a measure of success.
Yeah.
Where you weren't worried about the bills. You can afford to buy a PlayStation. You can go out and about, and it's not about, you can't go out to eat today, you got to eat what your mom cooked today. It's not about those struggles. And so we all just wanted to be financially successful. And so 6 figures by 26, I was 25 when I actually landed that interview for that 6-figure job. After I graduated with my master's fairly early, worked in healthcare for several years. During that interview process, my older brother, Ali, Marhum Haj Ali, passed away unexpectedly. And when he passed, he was 27 years and 9 months. I took a step back. That was October 15th, 2015. And I reevaluated what the purpose of life is. I said, it's cool to pursue financial stability, but there's got to be more. In the months and the weeks that passed, I received a packet in the mail, about 50 pages. And it was all the people who my brother impacted at the workplace. He was a director at Quicken Loan, one of the youngest, and they actually made an honor in his name that they give annually across the whole country. So one person gets the Alex Leadership Award. which is given to one individual who empowers his team members across the whole company. And when I got that, I said, maybe I can be for my community what my brother Ali was for others. That was an empowering voice. And so I left the corporate world. In January, just 3 months later, I announced for office. And I said, maybe this is it.
That's awesome.
Was there anyone that like pushed you kind of in a way?
It was just like a series of events that unfolded naturally. Ali's passing, then I had one person reach out and say, can you share your resume? This was shortly a few weeks after. I sent my resume as a mentor of mine, and I never looked back at it. Following the Arba'in, I got a phone call saying, hey, this state senator wants to meet you. And I was like, okay, I got to take care of my family functions. I'll cut back to him later. I sat down, and he said, there are some folk that I've worked with over the years who think you'd be a good fit if you ran for office. And so I think it was the right time, given that I was looking for a change of scenery. The opportunity presented itself, and we announced fairly quickly.
Were you into politics from before?
I was politically engaged, but never in the sense of like I wanted to run for office. I was a part of student government. I worked with a lot of nonprofits, but largely I was just, not in the space like I am now.
We had a question again from our brother that said, as the mayor of Dearborn, how busy are you? Just want to quickly touch on that one.
Very, very busy. In the first 5 months, I was probably doing like 70-hour work weeks. So between that and then fatherhood is obviously very time consuming.
Yeah, I was gonna say in family.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Now, I'm probably doing post the budget season. I do like 10-hour days at minimum. Weekends you have some events. But what I'm largely trying to put in place is I'll do the 10 to 12 hours on a weekday, and I'm trying to free up my weekends so I can just spend time with family and not really take too many events.
Yeah, because babies, they grow up fast.
They grow up fast, and I'm also like, I'm a Hammoud, my mom's a Bazi, my wife is a Baidoon, and so between family. All the weddings that are happening on the weekend too, there's just not enough time to relax.
Yeah.
So.
That's wild.
And, so obviously we all know that you are obviously the mayor of Dearborn, so like any big news happening that residents should know about, like what is the current state of Dearborn? I know there's a couple news that we're going to talk about later on, but anything new going on,
There's going to be some really exciting announcements that'll come around September.
Okay.
Some major investments that we'll be excited to announce in the city of Dearborn, I think around September timeline.
Nice.
So I can't say it just yet.
Yeah.
But some of the big things that we've changed, people have seen us cracking down on speeding and reckless driving. Tickets are up 700%, just so you know.
Wow.
We did the free pools initiative for kids under 13. I just thought that was important to give children something to do. You shouldn't be able to not go to a pool because you can't afford the daily admission fee. And we're so I'd say look to September for some really big major announcements regarding investments and things that are happening in the city.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, like you mentioned before, we could get right into that. You allowing any resident who is 13 and younger to go to any public pool in Dearborn for free. You had a very heartwarming post with you talked about it, how you felt growing up. Yeah. It was something that was somewhat of a challenge too. So can you tell us what pushes you to do those kind of things? Especially for the youth. I think I recently seen you posted or somebody posted you were at a basketball thing this past weekend. So tournament. Focusing on the youth, the tournament stuff like that. So what pushes you to do those kind of things?
I think it's life experience. When I posted the free kids for pool, I posted a picture of me and my brothers. We didn't go to the pools. We swam in the pop coolers in the driveway. When you're 5 kids, you can't afford $7 per kid.
Because we used to pop the fire hydrant.
Yeah. You can't afford $5 to $7 per kid every single day, or your family can't afford that one-time $200 pass or $150 pass. Right. And so for us, we sneak the hot water out of the basement, fill the pop cooler, and sit in it. And then you wait for Abdullah and the ice cream truck to come by, and you get an ice cream cone. And so I said, I knew what it was like growing up in that setting. And I saw that a lot of our pools for many families, it was like, we know that the kids couldn't afford to go in, or the parents didn't send their kids because of the price. And so I was like, take it away. If it's something that I'm able to do, I don't think community pools are the money maker for the city. Mm-hmm. There are other ways to make, your golf course should be making more money than your pool. 100%. And that wasn't happening. We were actually losing money on the golf course and somewhat breaking even on some of the pools. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, let's flip that trend. I'd rather charge those who can golf to golf. Yeah, that's a fairly expensive sport. Yeah. You got to be middle to upper class to actually participate in golfing, and the community pools should be advantageous to youth. And I think what you're actually going to see, I don't think it's going to cost the city much money. I think you're going to see a lot of parents and families start coming back to the pools, and it might actually generate more revenue than we did in the past.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. What are your thoughts on that situation?
I love it. I was gonna ask you like I was gonna tell you that I love that you're thinking about the youth and in a very mature and job where you're also bringing in the youth as well, and that's really nice.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, what are your thoughts on Dearborn Heights residents? Throwing us in there.
Yeah, what I'd say is if you want, what we call the Dearborn advantage, you gotta move across the street.
All right, I was gonna also mention the cousins from Hamtramck too, by the way.
We got a lot of family, but if you want to be able to access our stuff at no cost, you got to come and pay in the taxes. The reason you can make the argument why Dearborn residents get it, they pay taxes.
Yeah.
The taxes goes to fund these services as is. The admissions fee is kind of that supplement. And so if you're in Dearborn Heights or Hamtramck, we'd love for you to become Dearborn residents.
There you go.
We moved right in time.
Yes, exactly.
They did. So I recently heard property taxes for Dearborn residents, will also be going down this year, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Which will save obviously residents some money. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I guess how were you able to make that? You and your team be able to make that happen, and tell us a little bit more about that.
So it's like a 17% reduction in property taxes, which is fairly sizable for many homeowners. And so, taxes are levied in a strange way. They're levied in the tax that's called the millage. One millage is one level of tax. And so in the city of Dearborn, we had about 61 mills that we levied per household. And so last year, the voters in November, they voted down a millage for the city. It was 4 mills. And so it's easy to vote down a millage. We as a city then, we inherited a deficit. We were short $22 million. Oh. And so while it's easy to vote down the millage, what's difficult is to actually balance the budget. And so we were able to balance the budget by making some very difficult decisions, but we got the city on a pathway forward where we can take that loss of money and not come back and ask taxpayers for more. We're able to now live with the means that we have. So that's one part of the tax break. The second is last year when I was a state rep at the legislature, the governor proposed like record amounts of money for schools. And when we passed that budget, our school district here traditionally put taxes on homes to make up any loss of revenue that the state didn't give them. So if the state didn't give them enough money, the schools would put a tax on homes, they'd collect it, and then put it in the schools. Because the state gave them more than enough money, the state called them and said, you're not to levy the taxes this year. And so that's what allowed for the sizable tax break. Now, the 4 mills from the city that we balanced the budget, that's not coming back. The school-oriented tax, that may come back next year. It depends on how much money the state is putting in schools again this year. But we're hearing that they're putting record amounts of money again. So it's a possibility that we're not going to see that large of a tax in the near future for the next several years.
Well, that's pretty
and that brings our taxes down lower than Dearborn Heights. Another reason, if you live in Dearborn Heights, you should cross the street.
Across the street. There you go. We should have had a Dearborn Heights mayor in here too. It would have been a debate. It would have been a debate in the building.
You're making the old Dearborn mayor look kind of bad right now, but it's all good.
Yeah, no comment.
All right. So, by the way, we wanted to get him, respect time. Wanted to make sure we stayed within the hour. But now we're moving so fast that we ended up, we want to make sure we have him and ask him any kind of questions. So anything that comes to your head, obviously, feel free to shoot it. And if you want to ask us anything or mention anything, feel free to shoot it our way. So, and one of the things that, man, I gotta applaud you about is that any event that revolves, your community or surrounding communities, for those that don't know, he was in the Hamtramck versus Dearborn basketball game, obviously representing Dearborn, and he was up for it. I reached out to him. I'm sure someone else I think reached out to you as well. And his response was, "I'm not coming to the game. I'm gonna play in that game. And we're gonna win that game." Unfortunately,
we should have won that game.
Yeah.
It was what's his name that kept taking those threes.
Nabil.
Nabil was the worst. Nabil was Hamtramck's all-star, and he was on Dearborn's team.
Listen, I'm checking the time right now, so I'm gonna send him this clip too. By the way,
you said Nabil, I want to let you know right now. You lost us that game, and I will never again in my life play with you in basketball. Between you and Billy Southend, between you and Billy Farhat. There's no room for you guys in the city of Dearborn. So if you do live here, you can go to Dearborn Heights.
There you go. I'm definitely gonna send that. Is so hilarious. I'm gonna send that clip, and they're gonna be cracking up in the group because they're actually in the league right now. They're in a playoff game today. They're playing at Access in Dearborn.
Inshallah, they lose.
Yeah. So like I was saying, basically, he's always down. Like coming on this show, he was for it. He told me June, things will start to clear up. I reached out to him in June. Shows up. you're always helping out the community and doing that. And it's not just what's convenient for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're doing it on a day where I'm sure you had a busy day all day, and you probably won't be home till 7:30. So, why? Why are you always showing your face, showing up, supporting, and doing these kind of things?
I think the question is like, why not? The point of becoming mayor is not to become less accessible.
Yeah.
It's not to say, I'm mayor, I'm hiding in my office. If you want a meeting, you have to try to get on my calendar to come to my office. I'm trying to be as out there as I ever was, if not even more so, to demonstrate that just because I reached, this office, it doesn't mean I'm still not Abdullah who grew up in Dearborn. Like, you're still going to find me at Donutville on a late night. You're going to see me going to the South End basketball tournament that CRSD holds. You're going to see me playing basketball because that's what I like to do. You're going to see me out and about with my family at the local restaurants. I was at, yesterday or today I was at Shish Palace. I went to the seafood house the other day. Like, I'm still out and about in the community just as I would trying to live my life normally, regardless of the title that I have. And for me, for the youth perspective, whatever I can do to hopefully pull more people in so they can get informed on what's happening at the city, that's advantageous to me. I'm a big believer that if you communicate what's happening at the city, more people are going to want to get involved.
100%.
The fact that you as young people are talking about the property taxes, the kids in pool entry fees, what we're doing with basketball tournaments, I think that tells me that we're doing something right. Because young people traditionally, I don't know if they were this involved under the previous mayor, if you guys knew what was happening at the city. And so we're spending that much more time on communicating via social media. We're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, Facebook, much more than we were previously. And it's all about connecting to convey the message. Because I think people are smart enough to understand what's happening at the city. And if we convey it right and if we're transparent about it, I think we build a better city for it.
And I'm not the only one that thinks this way, but I've gotten so many people that talk about you say that you do a great job of bringing the whole city to be as one, and accepting from every race or ethnicity or anything like that, and that's a big deal, and I applaud you for that.
Yeah, I forgot to mention protests. He's at every single protest.
Yeah.
You got the Yemen protest, the Palestinian protest. I've seen him in every scenario, not only there, obviously speaking, and there's people that speak. I mean, obviously we're not going to sit here or whatever, but people that speak that just speak, and there's people that speak because they care, and I feel like that's what comes from you, I'm sure.
Yeah, and also, they talk just to talk, and then he talks and he does the walk, too. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, exactly.
It's a part of my life experience. My mother came here in 1974 from Lebanon. She was young, she was 4. My father's Lebanese, born and raised in Jeddah in Saudi. And so when he came here in the early 80s and his early 20s, him and his brothers were trying to figure it out. In 2014, while I was working in healthcare, I left. I went to work with the United Nations, the country of Jordan. I worked at Palestinian refugee camps throughout the Middle East. I actually almost permanently moved to Urdun. That was actually my dream at the time. I fell in love with the people, I fell in love with the culture, and I fell in love with the work. The job placement came back. It was in Muslim. And Muslim in 2014 wasn't the best place to be in, so I ultimately came back to Dearborn. For me, when it comes down to the Arab umbrella, I think I'm Arab before I'm Lebanese. And it's just that. I think nationalism is a very dangerous thing. If we begin to farq ben ba'd, like into Lebanon, into Palestine, into Yemen, into Urdun, into Iraq, I think that's a very dangerous game to play. There's nothing wrong with being proud of your culture.
100%.
But when I was in Lansing, I was the only Muslim and the only Arab. And then our brother Ibrahim Ayyash came up.
Yeah.
And me and Abe talk about this all the time. I was a Lebanese Shia, he was a Yemeni Sunni. And from the outside perspective, they didn't know the difference between us.
Nothing. You're out.
They hated us equally.
Yes.
And me and Abe always talk saying, if people can hate us equally, why can't we love one another equally? Because they don't know the difference between us. Only we highlight the difference between us.
Yeah.
And so that's honestly, my best friends are across every group. I really think we as Dearborn are very united people, even the non-Arab. We're a very strong knitted community, and it makes us a unique place. And I think we're the example for the rest of the world.
100%.
Absolutely.
Because there's a little bit of everything here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a couple of things I'm gonna take away from that. First of all, I think you hit the nail. Hit the hammer right on the nail. Is that the right quote? How you say it?
Sounds about right.
Sure. It's very important to do mention what you just mentioned, because I think like you said, nationalism it can get ugly. And when you come together, obviously together you can accomplish anything, right?
Absolutely.
That's first of all. And then second of all, I was going to say Abe Ayash. First of all, friend of the podcast. You, Abe Ayash, even the mayor of Hamtramck, Dr. Ghalib, he's relatively still young. You guys are becoming elected officials kind of cool again, Or I'm not being serious.
No, I was gonna
I'm being
say.
serious because, you look at the younger people who are watching. You guys are ordinary people, right? Elected officials, like she mentioned earlier. You kind of have this image of them that they're in their own world, they're in their own office, they get things done, and then you don't ever really see their face unless it's a big event and they're just there to show up, right? Seeing you guys everywhere, man, and you guys showing up to things and being out there, and then people kind of forget, like you said, you wake up, you're Abdullah. And I think it's very inspiring, especially for the younger generation. You guys are showing people that it's possible, anyone can do it. And you starting off with your story about failure, I guess, in a way, about mentioning that you tried to become a physician and stuff like that. You're making it seem like it's you guys are making it look cool and it's
attainable.
Yeah, attainable. It can happen. It can happen, and I think that's very
especially important. At a young age, you don't think in your 30s, in your 20s, that you would ever be in that position. You would think at least 40, 50 or whatever. So it's definitely attainable.
Yeah.
I think what's important to highlight is, oftentimes in the community, we equate age with experience.
Right.
Telling me how old you are doesn't tell me how qualified you are.
Absolutely.
I'm 55 and I've done this job for 25 years. Doesn't tell me anything. That just tells me you've done this job for 25 years. I actually have questions why you've done it for 25 years. Telling me what you've done in the time that you've had, that's experience.
What did you accomplish?
And so I never want people to be put off because of their age. When I first approached running for office, I was 25, 26. And many in the Arab community told me, oh, you gotta wait your turn. People who came here before you, wait your turn. But what's also important for young people is when you are set and you have a mission and you're in it for the right reasons, your niyyah is right, your intentions are right, you're not in a space to ask for permission. We're not here to ask for permission. We're asking for support. If you're asking for permission, you've already lost the mental game. If you're asking for support, it's different. You don't need to seek permission. You can go out and do if you have the work ethic.
Yeah, that is awesome. We got a couple questions right now. So great to see the mayor. He was a treat at the charity basketball game. Is he back for a rematch next year? It's in Dearborn, by the way. I just want to let you know.
Home turf.
Home turf.
I will be there.
Okay.
I'm calling out Ibrahim Ayash right now. If you're not playing, you're gonna donate $1,000. I'm gonna make sure Abe pledges $1,000 if he doesn't play.
He obviously I reached out to him to come, and he ended up having something happening that day.
No, my man doesn't know how to play. That's what it is.
Yeah. He said he had FOMO of missing out.
And I'm a sour loser. And I'm a sour winner.
Hey,
And
listen,
Dr. Khalid, I want you to play too. And Nabil is on Hamtramck's team this year.
And the year coming up, I'll be cheering Dearborn. So
Perfect.
you guys have to win.
As long as we don't have to win.
I'm done with Hamtramck. I'll be cheering for Dearborn.
How fast?
I haven't even moved out yet. I got the house.
Just put the sign.
The Dearborn advantage.
He's giving out free pools.
So we got him, I mean, for sure, inshallah, next year for the game. And then same person asking the question, then he said, and this is more of a serious one, I guess, since the mayor has brought up, the previous mayor, is he okay? He became a shut-in, and I think the citizens are concerned with his health.
So, I'll just tell you what I know, what I think is public, is he does have some health conditions. I'm not sure to what extent, to what details.
Okay.
We just always, Allah yashfi, we wish him the best of the best. And that's all.
Okay. All right. Just, I didn't even know about that, to be honest. So just wanted to make sure we shared the questions. And then someone just commented, Team Dearborn, Saad Abdullah, sister-in-law, who said, Team Dearborn and my wife, we love to see her and hear it with heart emojis. I was during the time when you were talking about being together. So, if you weren't the mayor of Dearborn, what would you be doing?
Oh, you know what we will be doing.
Not a physician, by the way, right?
You guys.
I always had this small business bug to open up my own small business. I don't know in what or what it would be. I love nothing more than to just hang with good people and have good conversations. I'd probably be in an environment like that. Who knows? Maybe
Sounds like a coffee shop.
Maybe I would have been, where Haras Coffee's at right now or something.
Yeah.
Or at Kahwa House. I gotta shout out both of them.
Is that the only two? The two.
I think it was the only two right now. I think Comedy is coming soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know they're also great. And so we love all. I don't drink coffee, so I drink.
We had all on the show together, by the way. It was actually pretty fun.
So I think I do that, but honestly, the most fun thing right now is being a father. I never realized how much I would love it. I wanted a daughter. Alhamdulillah, I got a daughter, a healthy baby. That's all. My wife will be mad if I don't say that. We wanted a healthy baby first. If it was a daughter, it would have been extra. And so I think I'd just be probably spending more time in fatherhood.
Yeah.
You know.
No, that's
My wife is the breadwinner. You know, she's obviously the smarter one. She brings home. So if she wanted me to sit at home, I'd be the best damn dry cleaner you guys see.
I tell my wife too, like, I don't mind. I got 2 daughters too, man, and one is 4, the other one's 1, and honestly, like, some people, we had a table talk about this, like how, roles and people having roles and stuff like that. Like, I personally don't care. I personally don't
Absolutely.
care. People need to realize you're the one that's losing. At the end of the day, if you haven't offended that your wife is making more money than you, then
man, that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, I know.
Go Fatma. And then when it comes down to my daughter, I change every diaper at the house. I put her down to sleep because I also think there's a bond that you make if you're a father that's that involved. Because if the mother is feeding or whatever it might be, you don't have that moment. And so for me, I make sure that I pick up and put down my daughter whenever I can and change her diaper whenever I can. Because it at least gives you those few moments where it's just you and her. So sometimes my wife will be like, "What do you want to do on Saturday?" I'll be like, "Why don't you go out?" And you just give me and Mariam time for a few hours.
Are you making us all look bad, man?
I'm not
You're making us look bad.
2 daughters, like, and inshallah, ya Rab, you get the 3rd and 4th, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guaranteed you heaven.
Yeah.
What more about Ahmed do you want than that?
That is true. So we got a couple, people, the mayor gave me the question. So as the mayor of Dearborn, what are your plans in getting us tickets to the Pistons playoff game this year? Best believer making it. Shout out to Munir Ghazali, because we do fantasy talk, sports talk, so our sports guys are tuning in right now too. So
shout out to Troy Weaver. What a great draft we had as the Pistons.
Yeah.
As it pertains to tickets, if you find any tickets, you let me know.
There you go.
Because I'll be scalping whatever I can do to try to get into one of those games.
Speaking of tickets.
If you got a ticket, you're going to want to call 313.
Yeah, no, I know you, and we're friends, so, and you said you're accessible, right?
You got a speeding reckless driving ticket, we have a word.
I'm
gonna pull up the video. Then someone said, "Great question, Munir. Party at the mayor's home." So that just want to throw that out there. Then, what are the 3 major issues you wish to take during your term? That's a great question.
Yeah, so I think top of the line is flooding. So a year ago, like 2 days ago, that the flooding devastated Dearborn. And so that's very top of mind. We're working on several projects and ideas for how we prevent that from hopefully happening in the future.
And you were definitely hands-on with that cleaning as well.
Yeah, and for me, the thought process wasn't because we were campaigning or anything. It was like, I hope that if my mother's home flooded and I wasn't there, that somebody would help.
Wow.
And that was the thought process. And thank God for all the volunteers that did nothing. I think the second big issue, environmental concerns are very big for me. And so we're working to improve the environment largely in the South End. Like, for example, we just stopped all trucks from driving on Eagle Street, which was a big drive-through thoroughfare for the semi-trucks that drove near the neighborhoods. And so we just ended all truck traffic on there, which residents have been asking for like a decade. And we're working on some improvement to air quality, alhamdulillah. And so we're working with the neighboring corporations also to improve how much air pollution they take out of the environment. So we're doing that. And lastly, we're a very big economic development community. Like, we have a lot of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And right now, the influx of Yemeni immigrants, we are having a beautiful new wave of Yemeni innovation and entrepreneurship, and it's amazing to see. And so whatever we can do, we're obviously the home of Ford, but we're also the home to thousands of small business owners.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes us even more special. And I would say we're the home of innovation, but also the capital of immigration. And so trying to see what we can do with our small business community to make sure they got the support that they need. Because there's 2 ways to drive economic development. There's 2 theories. One, you can go and try to poach the whales of the world. You try to pitch to Amazon to move your headquarters here. You saw every state bid to try to get Amazon to build a headquarters in their state. It costs you billions of dollars in tax incentives. You make nothing on the project. You just get the people to move. The second and the more long-lasting method is you work with small businesses that are successful and you see how they can expand. How can you add 5 more people? How can you add a second location? How do you expand your headquarters? What services or support do you need? And doing it that way, those small businesses are less likely to ever leave you.
100%.
A larger business will always pick up and move potentially if another state, another city offers them a better tax deal. So that's my thought process and philosophy.
Nope, those are great. Those are great points. And I got a quick question for you. That while you're saying that is, what is like? Do you feel like the process of opening up a business in Dearborn, like, is it difficult? Like, do you have people complaining about that being difficult? I mean, because I know I hear from other cities. I was wondering.
Absolutely, we have a fairly difficult process right now. One of the biggest reasons was our building department, our planning department, and our zoning department. Those are the three areas I had to work with. We're housed under three different departments. We put them all together under one department now, and they're all seated next to each other. And the hope is that there'll be better communication and coordination. The second thing we're doing is making sure that when you walk in, let's say you want to do X, it might not fit within the ordinances or laws of the city. Our job is not to tell you no. Our job is to get us to yes. How do we get to a yes? Maybe you can modify slightly your plans to fit with the ordinance. Maybe we have to amend the ordinance. Maybe it's outdated and our laws have to change to make things more easier and accessible. We're happy to also examine that. And so my department's philosophy is now, how do we get you to yes? Because we want your business. We want to make sure that you know that Dearborn is open to business.
Yeah. I love that. So great answers, some great information being shared. Want to give a shout out quickly to our second sponsor of today, because believe it or not, we are almost winding it down on the show. Our second sponsor of today is Give to Gain. Give to Gain is a nonprofit organization that sponsors orphans in Yemen. 100% of all donations goes to the less fortunate. The people who run the organization said they appreciate everyone who donates. Why Yemen? It's the largest humanitarian crisis and aid operation. 5 million people are at risk of famine. 15 million people need water or sanitation support. So if you're looking to donate, their Venmo's at Give, number 2 Gain. Zelle 313-445-8638. And their Cash App is the money symbol Give, number 2 Gain. Shout out to Rico and everyone else over there at Give to Gain. So, future plans. Mr. Mayor Hammoud, what are some of your future plans, goals for yourself, for the city of Dearborn? I know you kind of, touched on the Dearborn stuff, so I guess you don't really gotta mention Dearborn. What are some future plans for yourself? Like, is the mayor term in Dearborn, like, are you allowed to, like?
It's every 4 years.
Every 4 years, and is there like a cap limit?
There's no cap.
Okay, so what are your plans, man? You trying to be the mayor of Dearborn, or the governor? Are you shooting for governor eventually?
I'm a big believer in that what's meant to be will happen. And so I don't plan too far out. I never knew I was going to be where I am today. It just kind of fell in place. And I don't want to project too far out, just based on life experience. I realized that you can't plan 10 years out.
Yeah.
I think my immediate plans right now are family focused. Inshallah, Ya Rab, I'll get as many children as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends my wife and myself our way. And I think that to me is like the immediate plan I would love, is to grow the family. I love the fawda at the household. Growing up with 5 kids, my wife has 5 kids as well. Having that ruckus at the house is a beautiful thing.
We're 8. So.
Smaller, yeah. I wish. If we all look about that 8, I'll take it. So as many as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends us. I think that's my focus immediately, and really just doing what we're doing right now.
Awesome. And then someone had a question off of what you were mentioning. Is this your way of trying to decrease the unemployment rate? I think that goes back to your answer of
adding businesses.
Yeah, adding businesses and stuff like that.
So we have a relatively low unemployment rate across the state. The problem is the jobs that are available are kind of like these low-skilled jobs that are not well paid. And so I think what you're seeing is a lot of business entities. We, the city right now, we're going through the struggle. We have 200 job openings. It's because folks don't want that $12 to $14 an hour job. It doesn't mean much anymore. Growing up, I had a $5 an hour check job, and that was all great.
$7.
Yeah, and that was great. And so I think what you're seeing is the market has to shift. There has to be a floor in how much you can pay somebody, because a lot of these jobs that might be low skilled but high demand, they're required for you to operate. Your pools, lifeguards. We always have a shortage of lifeguards, and so we're trying to figure out what we can do to increase people's likelihood of taking on these jobs. We got to get them excited about these jobs once again, and so we're trying to figure out what we can do.
All right. Listen, this is because I'm down to my final one over here. So we got to go with somebody else. Is there any plans to capitalize on the NFL draft happening in Detroit? The NFL draft is happening in Detroit. I mean, I guess it's a somewhat relatively important question. So the NFL draft is happening. I don't think next year. I think next year is in Kansas City. I think the year after. So
the draft already happened.
The Detroit is they're hosting a draft. I think next year.
Yeah, next year. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, about to say, I thought Aiden Hutchinson was already coming over.
He is.
I think the biggest thing we have to capitalize on is as the Lions, we got to recruit somebody big.
Yeah.
From the city of Dearborn's perspective, There's not much you can do really, unless I stick a billboard in front of the stadium and say, "Come to Dearborn."
There you go.
But yeah, not really sure there's much we can do there.
Isn't there? Don't they practice?
The practice field, although it looks like touches Dearborn, the address is in Allen Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's by the
hill.
right?
Yeah.
By that area.
Yeah.
All right. You guys have any questions that comes to your head? Anything I want to ask him?
You know how they say, be the teacher that you always wanted? Like, I feel like you're being the mayor that everybody always wanted. You know,
I
so.
appreciate that.
Definitely. So I guess this one is the time for the final word. What advice would you give someone that wants to be like a leader in the community, old or young? That wants to inspire the youth or just in general, everybody, all the residents. Like, what advice would you give them? What would you tell them?
You know, I think the best advice I can offer is be your authentic self. It's a radical thing now to be yourself. I think especially for any young Muslim Arab, it's okay to say your name proudly. I know some of us have some funny sounding names. And we often try to cloak it somehow. You know, it's Abdullah. It's Abdullah. You can say the Ayn at the beginning.
Yeah.
I always said if you can say Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones, you can say Abdullah Hammoud.
There you go.
And being yourself, honestly, you don't have to shy away from who you are. And you're going to be so surprised at how far your story is going to take you in life. Because most folks might not have as powerful a story as you do. Especially for those of us who grew up, or children of immigrants, or immigrants ourselves, or refugees. And because we here in Dearborn, we have that work ethic and that grit that you don't really find elsewhere. And so to all the young people, never change, be yourself, and inshallah only the best to come.
Well, first of all, the crowd want to make sure they give you the respect. They want to give you a round of applause.
That never not makes me laugh.
Yeah. So first of all, again, thank you for Mayor Hammoud for being here today. You know, doesn't have to be here, obviously. It goes out of his way to come out here and come on a show like today. You know, came to the game that we had. Obviously, you see him around in the community. Like he said, you see it shows his face at restaurants, coffee shops, but plenty of other different events happening in the community. And we appreciate it. I mean, he inspires people like myself, too. Like, honestly, I see the stuff that you do, and I feel like, you know, you want to do good. You want to do good. You want to do great, to be honest with you. Not just good. You want to do great things. And I appreciate that. Any want to give him any more shout-outs? I know you're talking about him being a teacher. And
You really are leaving your mark.
yeah.
I appreciate
And you're
that.
doing as best as you can. It's amazing.
Yeah, no,
Very inspiring.
it literally took me back a step because I'm 32 too, and I'm like, man, what am I doing with my life right now?
And you shouldn't say that. You know, I
Like,
think the
wow.
other thing that we have to change, we often celebrate early success.
Right.
Oh, he's 32 and became mayor. That's great. Oh man, this guy's a role model.
Mhm.
No. We have to celebrate long-lasting success.
Yeah.
I don't think being the first is cool. Great. It comes with the hype. You might have shattered the ceiling, whatever it is, or given the aspiration to folks to look and like, you can do it. The more, I think, success for me is not being the first. It's ensuring that you're not the last. And the example I give is, Barack Obama was the first black president of the country after 200 years. Would we be celebrating that success if it took another 200 years before we elected another person of color to the presidency? I don't think that's success. And so we have to make sure that, my goal is, inshallah, I do a good enough job to the next time somebody with a different sounding name, maybe a woman in hijab who runs for mayor, people are going to say, hey, that Abdullah guy did it, so can this Fatima do it. Because there's a track record of them doing it just as good, if not better. So don't worry about not doing it at a young age. Age is not the measure of success.
That is awesome. Again, this is episode 40. We reached the 40 milestone. My goal was to get 40 episodes on all 3 of the shows, and believe it or not, we've already hit it with a good month left to go. So episode 40 of the Table Talk podcast, the Mayor of Dearborn, Abdullah Hammoud. You can watch it on Oz Media's YouTube page or listen to it later on Apple and Spotify podcasts under Oz Media. Any final words you want to say, Alvin?
Mabruk to you. Thank you for what you're doing. Honestly, you have played an important role with conveying the message to community members, and I can't tell you how important that is. Bring me back for the 100th episode with whoever big shot you're bringing for the 100th. If at the 40th you got the mayor, at the 100th I'm expecting the president.
There you go.
You let me know, and I just want to be here for it.
For sure, man. For sure, inshallah. Again, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for those that watch or that will eventually watch. Hope you enjoy the episode. We'll be back next week, Tuesday. Have a good one. Enjoy the weather. And enjoy swimming, by the way, if you got kids, 13 and younger.
If you're a Dearborn resident.
Dearborn residents, all right?